Trust king of the table and core sport to come out with the most predictable and boring matches. They did it in the recently concluded King of the Table 12. They are doing it again in King of the Table 15, which is scheduled to take place in December 2024, that is this year end. I'm referring particularly to the Brian Shaw versus Eddie Hall arm wrestling match. I mean, what kind of a match is this supposed to be? First of all, we had so many videos hyping up Brian Shaw to the farthest extent possible. We did not compare Brian to Jerry Cataret, not with Devin or Hermes Gasparini, Vitaly Lalatin, John Brzenk, Alex Kurdicha, Bako Saganashvili, Irakali Zirakashvili. The list is endless. All of these mentioned and not mentioned arm wrestlers had Brian Shaw's number, and that too quite comfortably, I might add. We started discussing about a possible Brian Shaw versus Levin Saganashvili match. We forgot all about arm wrestling, and we actually started comparing Brian with someone from the Armwrestling World who matches him in physique, weight, and physical strength. Yes, Brian is not only comparable, but I guess he is way stronger than Levan as far as physical strength is concerned. But what about arm wrestling? It is not even a frivolous comparison. Forget a serious one. It was more of a joke. I had said a Levan versus Brian Shaw match is a practical possibility, only after 4 years, and that too if Brian is still serious after that long period of time and he keeps training like he is doing now. He has miles to cross before confronting Levan across the table. I also said Brian has had quite a bit of training, more than 6 months, and has been tutored and mentored by the great legend Devin Larratt and an accomplished arm wrestler like Derek Smith. He should start participating in supermatches frequently from now, if possible, in all the cards of East versus West and King of the Table, and even other big promotions. That would get him more ready for the bigwigs of arm wrestling. He can start with the top-level 90 to 105 kg arm wrestlers. We know there's a huge pool of super talented and super strong arm wrestlers in that category. Bacho Saganashvili, his brother, Irakali, though Irakali might be too huge a challenge to overcome, but no harm in pulling him. Then we have Matushenko, Alijan Muratov, Chance Shaw, Auden Larratt, Prudnik, even John Brzenk, who is not that strong anymore at 61. We have Paul Lynn, Schoolboy, Ryan Bowen. Cody Merritt from the super heavyweight is also a good name to throw in along with his friend Corey West. Also the out-of-form Travis Bajent, Nugari, Chikadze, Reno Masic. I mean, the list is endless. Then he can move up to the 115 kilo arm wrestlers. What I meant was step by step. But what happens? It turns into a case of all bark and no bite. From Levan Saganashvili, Brian Shaw directly goes to Eddie Hall, his very good friend, fierce strongman contest rival, and YouTube video partner, and a total non-arm wrestler. This is utterly, totally, and bottom line ridiculous. After all these months of practice, training, coaching, arm wrestling specific weight training, and hours of table practice, Brian Shaw decides to pull Eddie Hall. I mean, which arm wrestling match Eddie Hall has had till date? Did Eddie Hall ever, even for a single minute, train for arm wrestling in a technical manner? Yes, he has uploaded some arm wrestling videos in his YouTube channel, but they were not serious arm wrestling matches. Eddie Hall does not know to arm wrestle. We all know that. Eddie Hall has not had any arm wrestling training, and Eddie Hall is not of the level of Brian Shaw. In fact, in a video uploaded on Shaw Strength, Brian Shaw is seen providing basic arm wrestling lessons to Eddie Hall. That was like just 4 months back. And in that same video, Brian is seen practicing side pressure and doing some other exercises, and Eddie is not doing anything other than making jokes and eating some potato chips. They spar casually for some time, and Brian is easily pinning Eddie Hall. This is going to be a complete mismatch, a complete non-event. Brian Shaw will win 4-0 or 6-0, depending on the number of matches they decide to pull. King of the Table is a best of 6 matches generally. Devin Larratt, when asked about this match, replied that Brian Shaw will annihilate, destroy Eddie Hall. Well, this was his spontaneous response. He might make an U-turn under pressure from Core Sports and say it will be an interesting match. But he has already told the truth about the match. And who knows Brian Shaw's capacity more than Devin Larratt? the legend who has trained Bryan and taught him the nuances of the sport. Devon has also arm wrestled Eddie Hall, and Devon is well aware of the fact that this is an easy outing for Bryan. Look, Eddie is a beast of a man, super strong, one-time world's strongest man champion. He can be a real threat on the table, if he focuses on arm wrestling and trains for it. That training has to be at least for a period of 6 months, and technical and scientific training under the tutelage of professional arm wrestlers or arm wrestling coaches. Then he needs to practice on the table with a pool of arm wrestlers, and only then he will be ready for a super match in a big event. My question is, when there are so many good competitors for Bryan, people who are really legit arm wrestlers, and who could have an even match with Bryan, why one amongst them was not chosen? Even a match between Kirill Sarychev and Bryan Shaw would be a really good match. Or maybe Bryan Shaw versus Andrei Samaev, the guy who used to practice with Denis Cyplenkov. He is a real mass monster. Devon has high hopes on this guy, Samaev. I mean, we have so many elite arm wrestlers. They could have suggested a good opponent for Bryan, taking in all the factors into consideration. Even Neil Pickup and Coach Ray were discussing a day back about this match, and neither of them could find even one point that favors Eddie Hall. They were unanimous that Bryan Shaw is easily the clear favorite to win this match. So you see, I am totally at a loss. Why Eddie Hall? I mean, Eddie's gigantic static strength, bench press, deadlift strength, iron grip, are these going to help him even a bit with almost zero-level professional arm wrestling training? Can you guys find a single video where Eddie Hall is training arm wrestling seriously prior to the announcement of the King of the Table match? Will 10 hours of training daily even help him now? In the video I was referring to, the one by Neil Pickup and Coach Ray, Devon tries to sugarcoat things so much. He goes on to say he respects Eddie Hall, he is a great athlete, such accomplishments, etc., etc. Yes! Yes! We all agree with that. Eddie is a beast in his field. Nobody will dare raise a finger at him. But then Devon, very meekly, I might go on to add, again, Bryan will very easily win this match. He is way too powerful in an arm wrestling way. Friends, you know what I mean. Feel free to watch the video by Neil Pickup. Devon uses the phrase, it is going to be a lopsided match. I mean, it does not take a Devon Larat or Hermes Gasparini to say this is a non-event. We who have just basic understanding of the sport know this. And I saw the Devon part of the video after I had almost completed writing the script for this video. Devon also says Bryan Shaw can be called an arm wrestler now, not Eddie Hall. He casually says even Coach Ray, also in a participant in the same video, would have been a better opponent for Bryan. We all know it won't be a good match, the Eddie versus Bryan match. Things get more ridiculous. Neil says that he and Coach Ray will spend time with Eddie. And he says immediately after that it might not be much of a help, given the very short time. Is Core Sports not worried about their reputation as a premier arm wrestling card organizer? If they keep arranging predictable and funny and casual arm wrestling matches, they might lose their significance soon. Bringing in celebrities and making them arm wrestle is not going to popularize the sport. Rather, if the celebrities popularize the sport in other ways will help the sport. Nobody wants to see a non-serious event in one of the most prestigious arm wrestling tournaments. I mean, would you like to see Cristiano Ronaldo play in the US Open tennis tournament after practicing for 10 months just because he is a world-class athlete? I would sincerely request Core Sports to rethink about the Eddie Hall versus Bryan Shaw match and find a suitable opponent for Bryan Shaw. 2 months is too less a time for Eddie Hall to prepare to fight Bryan Shaw. What do you all feel? Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.